Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the cottage. We are going to do another Auntie Karen Beyond the Cards chat this morning. And it's morning where I am. I don't know what time of day or night you might be watching this, but welcome in, welcome in. And what we are going to talk about today, well, some hot topics, literally. Things like triggers, bad temper flare-ups, emotional outburst, tower moments, overthinking, fleeting thoughts that don't seem to make sense, right? And what's really going on, okay? So let me just sum it all up by this. All of the things that we are going to cover today are actually your divine guidance that is trying to get your attention. Spirit guide, source God, spirit, the universe, however you want to look at it, your higher self, your subconscious, all of those things are trying to get your attention, and they all are trying to do so to bring stuff to your attention that you need to be aware of. So let's talk about these things just a little bit, okay? So I actually did some research and I looked up some definitions that I found very interesting. And let's start with triggers, okay? Obviously, we know what trigger means. We all, see trigger warnings and this and such triggers me, and seeing that triggers me, and you hear that a lot. But I looked up the definition, and keep in mind what I said, that these things are tools that are used by the divine or, whatever, to get your attention to affect positive change. So let's look at the definitions that I found regarding trigger. An act or impulse that initiates an action or a series of events. Okay? To fire a gun, right? We know that. To start a series of events or emotions. Okay? To explode. An event that incites a response. In information technology, computers, right? It can activate the opening of a file, such as a virus, or causes a routine or habit to be executed. Very interesting wording, I thought, right? So, in psychology, it is an event or experience or other stimulus or stimuli that initiates a traumatic memory or action. In gaming, it causes a player to execute a certain command. In other words, it is in control of the player's action. It controls us, right? Think about that. So, in a carriage, it is literally something that catches hold of the carriage wheel on a downhill direction. So it stops, it's meant to stop disaster. That trigger, right? Okay. So that trigger we found out can be relative to something traumatic. It can cause us to go into a routine or habit, a virus. It is meant to catch us before we go in a downhill spiral, and it can control us, right? It is to spark a response, especially a negative emotional response. All of these things I found like Webster's, thesaurus, looking it up like that, okay? To set off. I like that one too, right? So keep that in mind, okay? Triggers set off some kind of action or reaction, right? And a series of events, okay? Really, if you look at the carriage definition, it is meant to kind of stop us from going in another downhill spiral, okay? So triggers are actually things that come about that are a huge red flag flying right before our eyes if we look at that says, hey, you've got things in your subconscious causing you to react this way that need to be healed up. And if you will work it through these things, you will have peace and you might not be triggered so easily and you'll feel better, okay? So let's talk about temper. Let's talk about the word to temper as a verb. Okay, temper or temperament has to do with like a person's mood or a mindset, okay? So to temper means to moderate or to mediate, right? It is a middle course between extremes. if you temper something, if you have, to temper is to control, to adjust the pitch of or tune an instrument. It's a frame of mind, disposition, or a mood. A mind that is tempered is a calm mind with composure. It is the ability to control oneself. To lose one's temper, the first word that I got in that was tantrum, temper tantrum. And, you know, along with all of that came a childish display or fit, a fit of anger, a violent, willful outburst of annoyance or rage, a hissy fit, as we sometimes say in the South. What I found interesting was willful. And a lot of people are going to take exception with what I'm about to say because I do agree with that. Why, you say? And I spent most of my life dealing with what I thought was a bad temper that I couldn't control. So I thought it wasn't willful. No, it is. Because these things, when these things happen and we feel that overwhelming need to react and outburst and explode towards someone, that is yet another type of trigger where the divine or our subconscious is peeking out and saying, hello, stop, stop, stop. You need to work on me. You need to give the shadow self some attention. Your subconscious is in need of repair, and you are the only one to do it, okay? Let's talk about towers. We talk about towers a lot in the tarot. It's, you know, we make jokes about tower cards and that sort of thing, and we say they're horrible and, you know, disastrous, catastrophic, and all of those things. But in actuality, if you study the tower card in the tarot, it is really not a bad card. It's actually a very loving card. Hear me out. It does represent something that's horrible and unexpected, where your whole world comes crashing down. Because, this is the meaning of the card, because of the fact that this was something that was built on false beliefs, shifting sand, instability, house of cards kind of thing. It is literally caused by the divine. And it is the divine stepping in and it is a last-ditch effort, because trust and believe, and I'm speaking from experience, when towers happen in our lives, there have been events that preceded that where the divine was trying to get our attention and we wouldn't listen, okay? We just ignored it and just kept plowing through with that Knight of Wands energy, okay? And, you know, stubborn, bullheaded energy. And I mean, I'm speaking from experience. And so the divine, we kind of push the divine in the corner, you know, and out of love, the divine causes the towers to fall. And that's why, you know, because all else has failed. The divine has had all these, you know, given us all these chances, right? Where, okay, let's ramp it up just a little bit and see if this works. Nope, that didn't get our attention. Let's ramp it up and see if this works. Nope, that didn't get our attention. There have been so many things in my life that should have been towers, you know, until it just created the need for greater towers. Quite honestly, that's my story. But okay. But it is divine intervention, and that's why the advice of the card is when the towers fall, you let them fall. You don't fight it. It has a purpose. When the towers happen in our life, that is yet another thing that is a signal, huge signal, that we need to do some work, right? Another way that you know that you have issues, you may be going about your day thinking about, you know, the color of the flowers outside, just something totally seemingly trivial and, you know, not really of any effect, or, you know, pretty inconsequential. You may be thinking about something totally irrelevant to issues with your shadow, and you'll have some kind of fleeting thought like, I'm going to use an example that goes back a couple of years in my own life. And it crossed my mind, you don't think that you can attract anybody other than jerks. You just don't think the dating pool has anybody out there but jerks. And I went, and I quickly argued with myself, and I said, I don't believe that. That's not what's holding me back. And I did. And I had to take a step back and say, wait a minute. Is this somebody trying to get my attention? And I took a step back right then and there. I mean, I was walking through my house. I was thinking about cleaning or washing dishes or whatever. Right? I was walking through my house. I had this fleeting thought. And I took a step back and I went, I do believe that. And if I believe that in my subconscious, which I've told you, we're not aware of what the beliefs are in our subconscious, right? Our shadow self, okay? No wonder that's all I would attract was jerks or, people who aren't viable or whatever from a romantic standpoint. That's just one example. There can be so many things in that shadow. Have I arrived? Of course I haven't. No, we're doing this. This is a process, okay? Especially if you've lived as long as I have and not done shadow work for the many years that I didn't before I started. Okay, so, my first inclination was to deny it or repress that I had that feeling, which of course creates more toxicity. Okay, but it was better for me to step back and say, wait a minute, I think I do feel that way, and then work through it, okay? And it's not hard to do when those things happen. But all of these things, triggers, a bad temper, emotional outbursts, losing your temper, going through a tower, having these fleeting thoughts, and, negative mindset, those are just some of the ways that the divine uses to try to get our attention that we have work to do, okay? It leads to, when we don't address these things, it leads to toxicity, and it multiplies within us, and it also hurts other people, which creates toxicity in them. And it comes from unhealed wounds that sometimes go back to childhood. And it doesn't always have to do with anything that happened in your home. I mean, you could have been bullied. You could have had bad experiences. Maybe you had heartbreaks as a teenager where somebody said something, your romantic interest, said things or did things that were absolutely, very, very hurtful. But understand this. Hurt people hurt people. And yes, that is a canned response. People bleed on people who didn't cut them, okay? And so it's just, it perpetuates the cycle, okay, and spreads all this negativity around. And when people are hurt in their life, most of the time it can later manifest itself in one of two ways if those things are not addressed, okay? They will either have terrible self-esteem and beliefs about what they deserve that they don't even realize they have in their shadow self or subconscious, okay, which they're unaware of. And that create, they'll go around doing all these great things and seem like a great person and just have horrible experience after horrible experience. And that is why bad things happen to good people, okay? Karma doesn't work exactly like most people think it does, okay? It's a little bit more to it than that. But that might happen. And the other side is you get that person who is angry and bitter and exhausting to deal with and just an instigator, passive-aggressive, narcissistic tendencies, all of those kinds of things, just an asshat. Or you can be like me and had a combination of both. Yes, both. That can exist within the same person. And truthfully, oftentimes it does. Okay, and many times in my relationships with people, I would flip-flop from one extreme to the other. I have been in relationships romantically, specifically, where, I got the shaft and I did everything right, seemingly, okay? And then I have been in those where I was absolutely horrible to the person that I was with because, it's the same issue manifesting itself in two totally different ways, if that makes sense. So I'm not excusing those behaviors at all. What I'm doing, hopefully, is to try to help all of us to see that this is a process. It's a lifelong process, and we all need to stay vigilant to stay on top of our shadow work so that we can, this is one of the ways to help us to manifest not only better relationships romantically, but every single life experience, as I've said many times, is very much associated with what is in our shadow self or subconscious, yet we're totally unaware of it. That's the hand that rocks the cradle, and that is the beliefs that affects our ability to manifest and work the law of attraction. That's the missing link that many law of attraction teachers do not address enough, in my humble opinion. And that has made a huge difference in my ability to have success in manifestation. It takes time to heal these things, and the more we go down this path of healing, the better the manifestation is, the quicker the manifestation is, okay? Look, is 60-second manifestation possible? Yes, but not without not without healing all this unhealed junk in our shadow self. And that's why oftentimes, you'll see these law of attraction teachers and they'll teach this instant, microwave manifestation, and maybe they're good at it, but here's why it's not working for you. Okay, one reason, okay, and a big reason, okay. So I hope this helps you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't done so, I hope you'll subscribe here. Check out my other channel if you don't know about it, Enchanted Cottage 333. That is where I do tarot readings, okay. But here we dig beyond the cards to try to help manifest your future and help you create a better future going forward. Thanks so much. Many blessings, everybody.